Most Africans have this ideal that life in the US, in Canada, or anywhere but in Africa is like in Hollywood movies, that they will come here and achieve great success, build beautiful homes, get into careers. It's always one sided, but we rarely hear about the other side, those who don't make it. I recently watched a video of young Nigerians who are homeless and on the street. Take a look.
Me, where are you from?
Nigeria.
What was it like when you came to Canada?
When I came to Canada, I was going to school in Hamilton, so it was pretty good. And I was in boarding school, so it was pretty good.
Did you come to Canada alone?
Yes, I did.
No family.
I applied by myself to come to Canada, which was really difficult. And yes, I came to Canada by myself.
Okay, and so how did you end up on the streets?
It's a long story, but it's mostly because I invested in business. I invested in a business idea that failed. I was in George Brown College just down the street,
Wow.
and I had a fashion business, and yeah, and also the housing, like the change with housing prices in Toronto. Also, my mental health, anxiety. I struggle with anxiety, and so working a 9 to 5 is quite difficult. So I'm trying to figure out what to do and how to balance myself. There is an issue with housing. You know, it's not so much detox, it's not so much hospitals, it's not so much like the mental health, like the therapy. It's more so housing that there's issues with.
Wow. So are you currently homeless?
I'm working on it.
Before we continue, here are some important things to keep in mind. The aim of this video, just as my channel, is for us to have a constructive criticism. I don't have the full story of what has happened or background to these young people. It's what they have said, and it's rather difficult to understand someone's situation in a minute or two. There is always more to the story, but let's go with what they have said, and to that I will also connect it to my own lived experience as an immigrant in Canada. This young lady who is now on the street, I think this video is recent, she talks about her struggles and how she came to find herself in homeless, or let's say almost homeless, that she started a business. And I can see that I myself have started a business. I'm a founder. And one of the biggest challenge that we face as people of color is that we don't achieve the success we desire because there is minimum support from our community. I speak on this every time, and in itself is an issue, but we'll talk about that another day. This young lady, I think she goes by the name Simi, you understand, she applied, she came here alone. This takes me back when I came to Canada. I was also alone. I am an orphan. My parents died a long time ago. I was 19. So any given moment, I was also, even up until now, a candidate for finding yourself on the streets. She also adds that there's mental illness, there is housing issue. So let's talk about that as well. Recently, especially after COVID, this is in Canada, we've seen a surge in homelessness. Canada has become quite expensive. Now, when we talk about Canada, keep in mind that this country is huge. There are many provinces and there are also territories. So I live in Vancouver and she's in Toronto. So the major metropolitan city are Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. Canada overall, it says that in any given year, there are over 235,000 people who are in a homeless status. And the cause of homelessness here is closely tied to economic situation. That means if the cost of living is high, like in Toronto or in Vancouver, and rent is high, an average rent here in Vancouver could go into thousands of dollars. And if you cannot afford, you understand, and there's no other family to support you to take you in. Remember, when you come in Canada, this society is individualist. You're on your own from the get go. Even those who have families may find themselves homeless because not everybody's going to take you in. But in this case, we as immigrants, when we don't have roots here, the consequences can be horrible. But I've known that from the day go. Every action I've made in the past 27 years since I arrived in Canada was to keep me sheltered, to keep me fed, to keep me working. Some of us, when we come to Canada, let's talk about my group. We come after experiencing wars and we have trauma. So from the get go, we have mental illness or are prone to have acute mental illness. I suffer from PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, because I survived the genocide against the Tutsi. And so I live with that. I'm not special, but I cope. I have ways. But I've always thought to make sure that no matter what happens, I remain sheltered. That means I can afford the way I live. If you don't have a home, you have nothing. For those of you who are not here, who are in Africa, who dream of life here, you say, well, you make lots of money. Yes, you can make good money here. I can compare because I know some salaries, let's say in Rwanda. But if you make $2,000 Canadian, now USD, in Vancouver, 60% of that has to go towards paying you shelter. So 1,000 plus. So how much are you left with? Let's say you have to commit 1,500. 60% of that usually is what has to go towards your rent or your mortgage. So having shelter is important. Let's play another video.
My bro, what's your name?
My name is Peter, sir.
Peter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where are you from?
From Nigeria.
When did you come to Canada, bro?
2023 December.
And what was your experience when you came?
I came in as a student. I was doing good, but all of a sudden, my dad, who was my sponsor, fell sick. He got stroke. So they were not able to support me again. I became homeless. And
So you're homeless right now?
yes, sir.
How old are you?
Just 25 years old.
25 years old.
Do not come here on your own without having someone that will
Facts.
guide you.
What do you need the most right now?
Shelter will help me the most.
Are you in the shelters right now?
No,
Warming shelters?
no one shelter.
They're open.
I don't know anyone around here.
Okay, after this, I'm gonna tell you.
This brings another topic that I will discuss in detail. This young man who came, he says that his father was the one who paid for the education. You're not gonna like this, but this another topic I would like to talk about is we Africans in general, we don't plan for what happens after our loved ones die. And that's a problem. Because we are not immortal. And again, I am not fully informed, but obviously, if the father passed away and the kid is now unable to leave, then that means there were some poor planning. We have to say it before we can feel all this sense of pity or and I know some of you are gonna come after me. But yes, I've been in a similar situation when my father died. It was very challenging for us, even though we were not poor. I can tell you that certain things we have to think about, and I think we fail miserably, especially if you send a kid abroad. I have a friend from Japan, and ever since I met them, their parents have planned literally their next 50 years. Planned, planned at every stage of their lives. What happens, what's going to happen, what has to happen.